Hi, I'm Alan Douglas. Welcome to my studio. Today's painting is called the Fork-Tailed Hornhead. And what I want to show you in this video is a little bit of the nuts and bolts of mixing paint as far as getting temperature shift within a form. Let's get started. So as I said, I want to show you some of the temperature shifts that I'll be employing along the surface of the bird. What I want to happen is I want him to be a little warmer red up here, and then as his form travels this way, I want it to get cooler. So your eye goes up towards the top portion of his form and less so down here amongst the thorns. So let me show you my palette real quick. Now, this is acrylic paint. It's titanium white, cadmium yellow medium, cadmium red medium, alizarin crimson, raw umber, Payne's gray. The colors on my palette generally switch from painting to painting. They're not always set in stone. But for this one in particular, what I want to show you is how I'm going to employ a warm red and a cool red. Warm being cadmium red medium, cool being the alizarin crimson. Because that's how I'm going to control the temperature shift. And you'll also see up here where I want it warmer, I'll probably add in some yellow as well. Although this is acrylic, I treat my palette just like I would as if I was painting in oils. So I'll mix up the warmer reds, shifting into the cooler reds. Now this paint's going to dry pretty quick because it is more traditional acrylic. Well, it's called chroma color. And it's traditional in the fact that it dries quick, but it's not traditional in the fact that the binder is resin as opposed to polymer. The surface characteristics are very much a flat matte over the entire surface. I'm going to work fairly thin at this point because I'm not positive what's going to happen. So now what I'm noticing immediately is there's so much green in this particular composition that I need more of the environmental colors to kind of come in as reflected light, even within this color. So you saw my palette. I did not lay out any green, but what I can do is mix in some yellows and some of the Payne's gray, which is, the Payne's gray is essentially a blue mixed with black, so it's a very cool color. So you can see I get some gray there. Probably need a little more yellow. So you can see it's starting to take on a greenish tone already. Let me move that up a little. So what I'll need to do is mix that, some more yellows and reds, into this greenish color. And you can see how it kind of fits the environment a little more. So that's getting more towards the color I want, but it's still too dark, I think, so I'm just going to lighten it up. Again, I keep my paint pretty thin here so I can see my drawing through it, through the layers of paint. But the thing I want to show you is as I shift towards the lower part of the wing there, I'll start to get some more alizarin crimson in there, along with some Payne's gray. See how it's a cool red now? It's very purpley. I'm going to take a touch of this green so that it's not foreign to the rest of the color scheme, and start to apply it down here. And then to get a transition, obviously, you just use some of the paint that's kind of in between. That'll give you that transition between cool and warm. So it's actually, you know, there's a little green in there, there's a little red, there's a little yellow, so it's a little bit of everything. But even in acrylic, you can get some pretty smooth blends while it's still wet. You just have to work pretty quickly. So as it transitions down into the shadows, or the areas that I want to be cooler, I'll mix in a little raw umber to kind of dull the color down a little, as well as some more Payne's Gray. So to get a little darker and a little cooler as we transition down towards the lower parts of the bird's form. Get a little more green, especially towards the edges of the form. You want to pull in a little bit more of those greenish tones. So that it looks like it's set within the environment. And another thing I want to do is, sometimes birds' coloration changes around the form, so I want it to get a little lighter and a little more yellow as we come towards the front of the bird over here. Kind of like a buff color. I don't know if you can see. Want a little lighter. My brush strokes are going with the form of the feathers. And this is by no means the final layer. This is going to take some building up. So, you know, that to me is a little dark and a little too red. So what I'll do is I will lighten up that color with some white. Let's see how that looks. The white acts as a cool color, so that will do part of my work for me, but I think that's still not cool enough, so I'll bring in a little Payne's Gray and a little more white. A touch of that green I had before, so it harmonizes with everything else. Yeah, there we go. Another thing I usually do is, if I mix a certain paint color here and there's something overlapping it, in this case a tree branch, I usually at least add a little bit of that color on the other side of that object. And what that does is it creates that overlap, and it makes you immediately know that that is a continuing form. And that's important, even if it's subtle in this area. It's important to include that. So you can see how my palette becomes kind of a jumble of colors, to grays, to warm reds, to light yellows, to browner, cooler reds, to the greens. But when it's all applied in context with this green environment, it starts to harmonize a little bit. And that's why it's important to include some of this green within all these other colors, even if it's just a little dab and then you mix it into the other colors. Helps harmonize it. So hopefully that gives you some insight as far as the temperature shifts. I know I've talked about it before, but I think seeing me mix the paint between cools and warms will help you achieve it yourself when you go to actually figure out how to do this stuff. But seeing me mix the paint will hopefully help you include this sort of technique in your own work. Thanks for watching.